Where did you arrive in India?
Tansanut. From there,
Texas?
I got a ride out to Lai, which was their first division's base at that time. And then from there, I got a helicopter out to a fire base, which is where they were at. And, it was a typical classic fire base, first division style.
Sure.
And at night, I went in and talked to the other officers, and they said, what's it like here? And they said, did you go to Ranger School? I said, yeah. So, well, the only difference is they use real bullets here.
Oh, wow.
Otherwise, the Ranger training was the best you could ever ask for. It really prepared you. I mean, to prepare your head for all the stuff's going on, but
Sure.
technically, the things you had to do, you did them all in Ranger School.
So you go from Jensen and then take us to the next step again. Then where do you go from there?
Lai, which is up Route 13, about 15 miles north of Saigon.
Okay.
That's where the First Division had their headquarters at that time.
Tell us about those first interactions. You're a butter bar still, right? A second lieutenant.
Right.
Butter bar showing up. I imagine some of the soldiers in your command, I imagine, have seen a fair amount of combat by this point.
Yep.
How does that go? A brand new butter bar meeting some combat vets and being in command of them?
That's a very interesting question, because the very first patrol that I went on, myself and another lieutenant who was his last day in country, were at the tail end of the platoon, and the platoon sergeant was in command because the prior lieutenant got fired, was running the show. Okay. And we're going through a rice paddy. We go through this stand of trees. There's like an island in the middle of the rice paddy. And so we're the last two guys in the line. Okay. And there's 3 files. That's the way the First Division did it. 3 files is always the way you moved. Okay. So we're at the end of the middle file. Okay. And this lieutenant in front of me sees something in the bush. He says something, and then he gets blown away. This is like this far in front of me, arm's length in front of me. And apparently what had happened was there were 4 guys who were guarding all their equipment because the rest of the unit, and they were NVA, had gone into the village. So he gets blown away. And that's what I said when he got blown. Is he dead? Because right in front of me was my first patrol.
Wow.
Some other guys, picked up his body and they dragged him out. And then we basically, the whole world dropped on top of that.
What do you mean, mortar rounds and things like that, or?
Mortar, artillery, Air Force. I mean, everything. It's like the whole world just went boom on top of this place. And then we sent in a squad, and the 4 guys are still alive. They were out of it. I mean, they had concussions and everything too, but they all 4 were alive, and they were taken captive. So that was my first interaction. Okay. Then I was assigned to be the platoon leader of that platoon. And I went to the platoon sergeant, who was one of these, old career guys, right? He was maybe in his 30s or 40s. So I said, Top, I'd like to just hang around at the back of the, unit for 3 days, see how you do this. And he said to me, Sir, no way. So it's your platoon, you're in charge. I'm walking in the back. Okay. Wow. And so I took over the platoon. And, I never had any kind of question about anybody who served under me as to, what to do or where to do it. And because I took charge. But I mean, I had a lot of training with Ranger School. Okay. So they felt, I told you my kill ratio was 100%. Okay. Which meant that we killed others and we had 0 of our own killed. Guys got wounded, But whenever I was in command of whatever I was in command of, no one ever got killed. Okay, so whether it was the platoon leader, the company commander, platoon, what you call it, mortar platoon leader, which lasted about a day and a half, because I talked to them about their kill ratio, and then we're going to start using VT, variable time fuses. They went to the company commander and said, "You got to get this guy out of here. He's going to get us killed." And so that was the end of my mortar platoon leadership.
Yeah. So
That was at the end. That's after I got out of the field. Right.
yeah. So when you say 100% kill ratio, then that means effective in, I mean, just to use the Stark language, effective in killing the adversary, but none of your guys, so long
Got
as they're in
killed.
command, were killed. Some were wounded.
Yeah.
I want to go back to this very first patrol. How long had you been in Vietnam when you went on this first patrol?
2 days, 3 days.
2 days. So you're 2 or 3 days. So your very first patrol.
Right.
The lieutenant who has command.
No, he didn't have command. He was leaving.
Oh,
He just wanted to tail along to go to a last patrol. It turned out it was his last patrol, all right.
oh, okay. So this lieutenant's out with you. He's thinking that here's my last hurrah. I'm
Right.
heading out of the country.
Right.
Um,
He was going out the next day.
and the question, he was hit. Was he killed?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was really blown away. He's, I don't know how many rounds hit him, but it wrecked his arm, but they also killed him. He got it in the chest too. Because we didn't have the armor back then.
Right.
You know.
Do you happen to know his name?
No, I forget.
Yeah. So often I ask combat vets, I'll say, when you're going to Vietnam, you know that you're going into a war zone, but at some point that becomes really real. And then you realize, oh yeah, okay, this really is a war zone. I mean, obviously, I think that must have been the moment for you when you realized, okay, this is absolutely for real.
Oh yeah. It kind of got my attention. Because it was actually the second day of the patrol. The first day of patrol, we just did a lot of walking. And then that night, they were told they were going to go in a different direction. And every one of the platoon leaders had chopped up their maps because that's what they did.
Yeah.
But my training was you never chop it up, you always fold it. So I'm the only one that had a map.
Oh, I see. You mean chop it up? They would cut it into pieces?
Yeah, they cut it into pieces so they could put it into a plastic sleeve. So
Oh,
you look at the piece you want to look at. But I was trained to fold it up and you stick it in a plastic sleeve.
and you had the whole thing.
So I was the only one with a map.
What impact did that have on you? You said that this lieutenant is right in front of you.
Right.
You're only in country for a few days. You're an officer, so you know that you're going to be in a position of command.
Right.
What are you at this point? 25, maybe something like that.
23, I think. I was the old guy
Yeah.
compared to everyone else.
Right.
Literally the old guy.
Yeah, you're 23. You're a junior officer. You know you're going to be in the field. You know you're going to be in command, and you just saw what happened to this lieutenant right at the end of his tour. What impact did that have on you? I mean, personally, but also just, the realization that not only are you in Vietnam, not only are you in a combat situation, but you are, going to be in command in a combat situation where these kinds of things happen. What impact did that event have on you?
Actually, it was just another day. I mean, I had more things to focus on and think about other than thinking about what happened in the past. I had to, establish command, do whatever, do the patrols they wanted us to do, set up the ambushes and do all. And I was pretty good at that because, like I said, went to Ranger School. So almost everything that we did, I had already done it in training. Almost everything. So it's just your training takes over and you do what you do.
That's what I hear. Yeah, I hear that so much. Training takes over.
Right.
You probably don't have a particular number.
I killed 52 people. Okay.
Oh, that's not the question I was gonna ask.
Oh,
But,
and that's unusual for someone to personally kill 52 people. There's a reason why.
what is that?
When I was there, they changed the way they set up the ambushes. So typically the ambush should be set up on a trail. Everyone would have a claymore out and they'd all have a generator to fire their claymore. And so the lieutenant would fire the first one and everyone else would fire theirs. What they found out was a lot of people never fire their claymores. So they changed it and they had all the wires come back to a battery. And the battery was where I was. So I initiated all the ambushes after that. And that's why the kill number was so high for me.
Okay, because,
So I would set off 10 claymores with one action. And there's 750 balls in each one. So 7,500 ball bearings go down range. Your chances of surviving that are pretty low.
wow. And I mean, this is a very definite number. Is this related to the body count policy in Vietnam? I mean, you know that number because afterwards you would count because your higher ups wanted to know the number to
Yep.
satisfy the body count policy.
Yeah, there's all kinds of crazy things happen with that. I mean, I blew the biggest platoon size ambush up to that time, killed 13 coming down a trail. It was an ambush that I was very good at setting up ambushes, the strategy of the ambush. But this ambush was set up. They sent us out. They must have had some intel. They sent us out to a place that was beyond artillery 105s. So we didn't have artillery, real close artillery support. It was a trail that went, it was a ridge of the trail, and then it went down to a river. Okay, and that's where they crossed the river. And so we set up the ambush, and you had to be very, very close because it was on top of the ridge, and so it fell off on either side. So basically, some of the guys are only 3 foot from the trail, okay, because you're down below. Yeah. So I set up this ambush with all the claymores, and the point man comes through. We let him go through. He goes down to the river. The main body comes in. They stop because it's the top of the ridge, and we just blew them away. I think maybe one or two might have survived, and we went out and shot them.
These were NVA or VC?
Actually, after they were NVA, but it turns out they were guys in stretchers that were being brought back to the rear. You can't tell at nighttime, right? But basically, it was the Red Cross.
It was the NVA Red Cross, basically.
Yeah, basically. I don't know what they called it, but so a colonel flew out the next day. He wanted to count the bodies himself. There they are. And so,
so of these 52, I had another question in my mind, and it just popped out. I don't know where it went, but of these 52, no, I'm sorry. Here's the question. You mentioned just a minute ago that there were some wounded, and you went out and the soldiers under your command. How many soldiers are under your command? I know it's going to change.
It's about 30, but it never got to, more like 25, because people are always coming and going.
So you mentioned
you had three what you call it, squads. Okay. And that's how you move, 3 squads. So in each squad had about 10 guys. That's approximate.
So you set the ambush goes off, you have these killed NVA, but then some are wounded, and then you said, and then the wounded we killed.
Yes. After you blew an ambush, and you realize almost all of these are at night, okay? Like 85-90% were at nighttime. Okay. Yeah. So you blow the ambush, if there's any wounded out there, whether they're wounded or not, you just go out there and you kill them, because you couldn't take them captive because you didn't know if they were alive or not. And you couldn't leave them there because they could throw a grenade at you. So you would the standard procedure was you blew the ambush, and whatever was left over, including the ones who were dead, you fired into them and killed them if they weren't dead already.
Was that sort of an unspoken policy?
No, that was it. That was the policy.
That was the policy.
Yeah, night ambush, you went out and killed everyone. You couldn't not do it because then you'd be putting your own self at risk.
And I'm guessing, you know, going back to that question now that I asked about the lieutenant, I mean, what impact did that have when the lieutenant was killed right in front of you? And your response is the response that you often hear from combat veterans. You just got to move on. You don't have time to contemplate it. You don't have time for philosophy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you don't think about it.
Just move on. And I imagine it's the same after these ambushes. It's business, and you do what you need to do in this transaction, so to say, and then you move on to the next thing.
I mean, when I first saw that we did this, I actually talked to a chaplain about it. You know, and he said, "Well, you know, that's about, you know, you got to do what you got to do." I said, "Okay," you know.
That's what the chaplain said. Yeah,
because it got my. That's what we. Yeah, that's what we do. Okay, so that's what we do. As far as I know, that was the policy because the chaplain knew about it. It wasn't like secret, you know. It's what you did.
Right. So, I mean, what you're describing, and you know, I've heard this. And by the way, if you disagree with what I'm saying, please say so. But you know, I've just heard this so many times from combat veterans. When I began interviewing combat veterans, you know, gosh, almost 30 years ago now.
Oh wow.
I expected that, oh, in the world of war, you know, since death is such a close reality, I expected that, you know, that soldiers are going to be asking themselves the big questions, and they're going to be doing a lot of praying, and they're going to be reading philosophy. And what I found out is overwhelmingly, it's just not the case.
No.
That as you use the phrase, the training kicks in.
Right.
And in a way, you become an automaton.
Yep.
But at some point in life, you know, this stuff does, you know, you always have these memories, but then things change. What, you know, at what point in your life, or when in your life, did it kind of hit you, you know, seeing that lieutenant killed right in front of you, knowing the number of enemy that you killed, having in your mind these memories, when did all of that stuff hit you? And since you're not in the world of combat now, the automaton's not there, and now you've just gone back to being, you know, regular human being, Patrick McCarthy. And I mean, did you have that moment like, wow, I mean, was that really me? Did that really happen to me? And was I there? Do you understand what I'm saying? At what point does kind of the human side of all that kick in?
I guess, you know, way after returning. I mean, I didn't realize I had PTSD until a psychologist told me. That was many years afterwards. Okay. Because what I would do, and what I found in a lot of other guys, you became workaholics. I mean, we'd be the perfect people to hire, because I would work to 3 or 4 in the morning, no problem. Okay. Simply because then you didn't have to think about things. You were concentrating on something else. So, and I did that for decades. You know, it's only after I retired that I actually started thinking about this stuff. Because
I've heard this. You have more time in your hands, and then just given the basic facts of life, you know, it's true of both of us. You have more life behind you than you do in front of you.
Yeah.
You're spending more time thinking back. You said that you have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. How did that show up as you look back 10, 20, 30, 40 years back? How did that show up in your life?
Well, you know, when you're living through this, you don't think about it because you don't even know you have it. Okay. It wasn't until I went to a psychiatrist that he diagnosed it. I said, really? Yeah. And then you start thinking about things you used to do, like being a workaholic and, you know, putting things out of your mind, stuff like that. You go, oh shit, not everyone does that, because you think, you know, you're like everyone else, but you're not. And so he diagnosed it. Then he sent me for a second opinion to another psychiatrist. And I said, do you think I have PTSD? He says, oh, absolutely you do. I said, oh, okay. So I didn't even know I had it until I was told I had it.
Yeah. And in your case, the main sort of symptom of that was a workaholism, just kind of avoiding
Right.
thinking
Right.
about this stuff.
Right. Not thinking about it at all. I didn't think about it at all when I was in the workforce.
Yeah, yeah. The question, I actually haven't asked this question for a while, but I used to ask it a lot of Vietnam vets or of other combat vets. Here's the question. Suppose I devised a magic potion and that I could give to you, and all you need to do is take one sip of this potion, and all of these, the good memories of Vietnam, and I'm sure there were some of those, the good memories of Vietnam you keep, but all of the bad memories go away and you never have to deal with them again. Would you drink the potion?
I don't think so,
Why not?
because it would make me other than what I am.
Yeah. I was going to say try to explain that, right? But I know it's impossible. I know you can't explain it. But are there any words you could use to try to get across what it's like to be a person who experienced these things, and then you came back to a country where people are concerned about petty stuff and upset about petty stuff, and you're carrying this stuff around, and you're pushing it down, and you're working so hard, but then you retire, and you've still got these memories from 50 years ago, but I imagine some of them are as if it happened yesterday.
Some are pretty, prominent. Yeah. There were a lot of other things happen other than what we talked about. Yeah.
Do your best with whatever words you have. What is that like? To try to explain it to somebody who just has no idea, or never having experienced that, is carrying these kinds of memories, and then saying, what, if I actually could get rid of them, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would still keep them.
Well, one of the things that pops into my mind is one of the things that makes you and I different. I know that I could kill you, and I know I could kill myself. Most people don't know that. Okay. And that just comes from the fact of having done it so much. So it changes your perspective. But like I said, when I was at work, I pushed all that stuff out of the way.
Yeah. I want to go back to these 52, this number 52. And the point of this question is not to pry or
nothing is, I don't care what you ask.
Yeah. Yeah. The point is not to pry or to be ghoulish, but as you think of these 52, you see them, there they are. Is there any particular, of those 52, is there any one particular memory that really sticks out in your
Yes.
Are you willing to share that?
Yeah, sure. So we came up with a number because one day we were sitting around counting. That's how we got to 52. Okay, because when you're doing it, you're not like keeping score. Okay, it's just that we one day went through all the ambushes and all. But the one that I remember was, and when you're blowing an ambush at night, someone's coming down the trail. You can't tell anything about them because you can't even see them. Even with a starlight scope, you can't see them that well. Okay, they're kind of like fuzzy green. And I blew this one ambush, and it was really a fantastic ambush in terms of design. And it turns out that most of them were not soldiers. They were people who were forced labor. The NVA would take the villagers and have them build their forts in the jungle. But normally they'd go home during the day. But for some reason, this group was going at night. You can't tell what they are. They come down the trail. It was a T. They walked towards me, and I had the claymore set up to blow across this way, but we faced them that way. So it was like an L. Blew the ambush, go out with all the dead, and we're killing a couple that that were still alive. And I remember looking at this one woman. It was a woman. It was a grandma. Okay, and her face was pushed all out of shape with her teeth. It looked very gruesome because she must have fallen after she was dead. She must have fallen on something where the concussion basically rearranged her face. It looked kind of ghoulish. But then you could see it was, she was just an old grandma. So a lot of the people that you killed, they weren't soldiers. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. You can't tell at night. You're not going to go out there and say, oh, by the way, you have an ID. Ain't going to happen. You're in a free fire zone. That's it. It's a free fire zone. You don't have to ask permission. Someone comes down the trail, you blow them away. That's what we did.
Did that event at that moment, did it stop you in your tracks, or is that something that just stopped you in your tracks later on as you looked back on it?
It stopped maybe for 10 seconds because I had other things to do. It's just that I saw it. It always stuck in my mind. Still does.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people we killed, like I said, they weren't soldiers, but we didn't know.
Sometimes combat vets tell me that, the Viet Cong, can sometimes be a 13-year-old kid. Did you see
Oh, yeah, sure. Definitely. No problem. Yeah. The NVA there was a distinct difference between the NVA and the VC. Okay. The NVA, they were soldiers. I mean, when you interacted with them, they knew what they were doing. The VC were just, local guys that get scared by a firecracker kind of thing. So, I mean, when I got my Bronze Star for Valor is when I really screwed up. We got inserted into a LZ that was hot. We moved into the tree line, supposed to set up an ambush, but I didn't. I just set up a perimeter. And the first mistake was not moving far enough away from the LZ. Okay. The next thing.
Yeah.
And next thing was I had trip flares put out behind our position. And I didn't inspect them. Okay. They're put in backwards. So the way you set up a trip flare is you set up the tripwire, the flare's next. No, it's the other way around. You set up the flare and the tripwire is next, and then you're here. So they walk past the flare, they hit the tripwire, and they're in silhouette when it goes up. But we did it the other way, okay, the wrong way. So the trip flare goes up and we're blinded and they run away. That was the next mistake that I made, okay? Then they knew where we were. Obviously, they blew the trip flare. They decided to attack. It was a classic attack, just like we would do, okay? And I kept holding off. Don't return fire until you have a target. And when they were like, I don't know, maybe 10 feet from us or less, I opened up and we blew them away, literally, okay? One of our guys got shot through the ass, so I had to do a dust off. So, the action was over. We went out. There were no wounded. There were no dead. They took their wounded and dead with them, and they left. Okay. So I had to do a dust off at midnight. The only place to do it was where they had been. Okay. So
that was the only clear spot that he looked.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was a clear. It was a very big clearing, but that was the end of the clearing, and big clearing, like maybe 5 acres big. Okay. And we were just at one end of it. And so I had to, in order to bring the dust off, you have to have a strobe light. So I wasn't going to ask anyone to do this because I really wouldn't ask anyone to do anything that I didn't do. And this was the first time. So I'm out there with my steel pot, a strobe light in it, staying in the air, exactly over the place where they had just attacked us from. And I'm sitting out there and saying, am I out of my fucking mind? What's going on?
Wow.
And they took the guy and nothing happened.
Wow. But for that action, that's what got you the Bronze Star with Valor.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get court-martialed because of all the things I screwed up.
Oh,
Because
wow.
they don't, Lieutenant McCarthy, you're going to be seen by these officers. I said, oh shit, they're gonna fire me. We're just the opposite.
Did you or your guys ever get into hand-to-hand situations?
No, Never got that. And we got close because every once in a while you blow a day ambush. Okay, and those you wouldn't try to necessarily, unless they're firing at you, you try to take them captive, which we never did. But so you got closer to it. You could see them. You can make easier to make decisions, but we never got to hand. Because we were aggressive. I mean, we were going after them. They, really didn't like being in a fire base. I'd rather be in the field because you could take some action. You could do some really crazy things. And
yeah, let me ask this question, and it'll sound like initially it'll sound like a stupid question. You just said we were going after them, and so the question is, why? Were you going after them because they were communists and you were fiercely opposed to communism, as folks in DC were saying? That's one way of putting the question. The other way of putting the question, the other way I had it formulated in my mind is, you're sitting there, you've been out in the field for a while, some junior enlisted guy comes up to you and says, Lieutenant, why are we here? What is this all about? Why are we going to go get those guys, right? What is this war about? What would you say then? What would you say now? What is this war about? Why are we setting these ambushes? Yeah, why are we setting these ambushes? Why are they trying to kill us? What is this all about? What's your answer to that question?
Never came up as a question from anybody I was with. It was
never
never came up as a question. We were just there doing our job, trying to stay alive. It was more trying to survive rather than be an aggressor. Okay, because that's the way. If you were being the aggressor, you keeping them off base, so to speak.
Yeah. So your job is to stay alive, keep yourself. You're an officer, so it's not just you and the person next to you, but you and the guys under your command.
Right.
Keep them alive, and you were successful in that. You took some wounded, but none killed under your command. And that would sometime involve killing the enemy. I mean, often it would involve killing the enemy.
About every 3 days was the average. If you didn't have a contact in 3 days, everyone got very nervous because they knew it was going to happen. But every 3 days, you had contact of some kind, either a night ambush or running into somebody somewhere,
And is this for, your entire year in Vietnam?
Well, no, I was 6 months in the field and 6 months out of the field, doing, being the XO and stuff.
Okay.
So it was, 6 months in the field.
6 months in the field, about every 3 days.
About every 3 days, you had contact of some kind. One of the weirdest ones was we had been told to go to another place from where we were. So it was like about maybe 10 clicks, kilometers. So we went through rice paddies and up into jungle and back down into a big open area that had in the past had been a road out to the rice paddies. And we see these people coming out of the bush. Okay. Now it's a free fire zone. We could have blown them away. Okay. But it's daytime, so I can see them. None of them had weapons, they had tools. Okay. So we went over, we can't really talk, but we tell them, we're going to march back to the village, which is what we started to do. And so, every once in a while you take a break to, so you can keep going. So we took a break. And I had a guy in our unit. It was a Project 100,000. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. These guys who probably shouldn't have been there.
His name was, we called him Basic. The guy was a mule. He could carry anything, and he carried the ammo for the M60. Okay.
Yeah.
And he would do anything you told him to do. Okay. So
is this because he was just incredibly brave or not very bright?
Not very bright. Okay. And so we're sitting there, we're letting the villagers take a rest. And these guys decide to mess with him. They said, Basic, we're going to kill them all.
Oh, no.
Takes out his M16, cocks it. Stop! No. He just would have killed them because he was told to. But most of the guys wouldn't have been like that.
Right. Wow.
So it was.
Yeah. I have heard. So you saw the impact of that project. What, I forget, what is it? 100?
Project 100,000, or
Yeah.
McNamara's something or other. It was,
You saw
they
that.
didn't have they couldn't pass the test to get into the Army.
The basic
Because,
intelligence.
right. And, but I mean, the guy was literally, he would do anything you tell him to do. He just didn't think about it. You know?
Wow.
It was kind of, I mean, up to that point, it was fine, but then it got a little scary after that. It's, oh shit, you got to watch what you say to this guy.
Right. Wow. So at that time, you said that in your year, you can't remember anybody ever talking about the meaning of this war. Suppose, someone shows up at an American Legion meeting now, or, in some other context, and they ask you, Mr. McCarthy, what was that war about? What's your answer now? What was that war about?
Well, it was a false war. I mean, the domino theory, that was bullshit. Okay, that was the big thing. Dominoes, stop communism, yada, yada, yada. The Gulf of Tonkin was manufactured. I mean, there's a lot of the wars we got into. I think it was really more for the suppliers of the material rather than the quote, saving the world kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because we had, pretty good equipment, and it's really expensive, and someone had to manufacture it.
That gets me to another topic. You mentioned the NVA, and they're equipped and they're getting help from China, from the Soviets. I imagine some of that trickles to the VC as well. But
probably
in terms of firepower, I tell my students, I just talk about this incredible unbalance in firepower. I mean, the U.S. has all of these jets in place, and planes flying out of Taiwan, flying out of Thailand.
Right.
Of course,
B-52s.
flying from bases in South Vietnam.
Right.
The incredible firepower. And now I'm thinking particularly of the VC, the Viet Cong, these folks running around in what look like pajamas and flip-flops, and they're setting these very basic traps, punji traps and all this stuff. And
well, when I was there, that was they were like antiques. They were using real explosives.
Okay, so at that point, but still just an incredible unbalance in power. Right. But yet it seems like they were incredibly persevering. What was your perception of the enemy? I mean, in some way, did you respect them, or what was your own thinking about them as an enemy?
Well, I mean, the VC basically were the local villagers. Okay. So, I mean, they were the enemy, but they really didn't do any kind of attacks that were meaningful in terms of numbers. The NVA, when you tangled with them, you knew you were dealing with something very different. Okay. They were disciplined. They were like us, they followed orders. I mean, they were really, really good soldiers. So you had to respect that. Not that I liked it, but I had to respect it. Yeah.
I think part of what you might be getting at there with what you said at the beginning of that answer is, Tet just devastated the VC.
Well, it's a political win, but it was a tactical defeat.
Yeah.
I mean, Tet was all about the optics in the U.S. What happened on the ground in Vietnam, they got decimated. I mean, they never recovered.
Right. Yeah. So by the time you got there, the VC had been, devastated by the response to Tet, but the NVA is still a significant force.
Well, they were, I mean, basically our job was to interdict them so they did not get to Saigon. That's what our whole mission was, okay, on a larger scale.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. So we set up all the ambushes, okay? It's just that when you tangle with the NDA, you didn't necessarily be dealing with like 4 or 5 people. You could be dealing with battalions. And that's like the lieutenant who got fired, he wasn't about to blow an ambush on a battalion. He would have gotten wiped out. As a matter of fact, they saw him and he saw them, and they decided to not shoot at each other. It just passed because they had the same thought. If we shoot at them, and they follow in columns, we'd be shooting through the Americans at our own people. So they didn't want to do it.
Wow. Did you work at all with the ARVN forces, the South Vietnamese?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially towards the end, they provided artillery support. Their artillery support was very different than ours. I mean,
So,
they would walk in the artillery closer than the U.S. ever would. I remember one time we were leaving from an area, and so we say, basically bomb where we were. Well, there was shrapnel coming at us. Hit one guy's helmet, bounced off.
wow.
We weren't moving fast enough. So, and then we did work with them. Like, we never went into villages. That was the policy when I was there in the first division. The ARVN would go in. So we may surround the village, but we never go into the village. They would go into the village and they would deal with their own people.
Did you trust the ARVN as an ally?
I didn't distrust them, but you always reserve judgment. Yeah, basically, your unit is your world, okay, and anything out of it, including your upper command, okay, are them, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they told us to do stuff that was like really stupid and got people killed. Yeah.
Who did? Your higher ups?
Yeah, sure. Every time you got involved with them was really a bad situation because they were just, they're flying around in their loach, and he says, "Oh, there's a machine gun nest 2,000 meters away across the rice paddies. Shoot at it. It's about dusk." Hey, give him my position. So, M6. I said, "Okay, fire at that thing." I should have told him to fire at the loach.
Yeah.
And it comes back, Colonel comes back, and he was the S2 probably. 3 confirmed kills. Give me a break. We didn't kill anybody. And I said, "It's okay, everyone pack up. We're leaving. We're going to go set up a new position because we just gave away our position." Nothing happened the rest of the night, but,
These are officers wanting to pad their stats.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's what he was doing. And we had another one where my platoon sergeant, this is the only guy whose name I really remember and that I looked up when I got back, and it says Sergeant Markovich. He was a shake and bake, a younger, like I was. And the recon platoon had been out, and they had discovered this fort. It was under the surface. It was in a ravine, actually, very tight ravine. And so they told the colonel, and the colonel said, "Okay, we'll have a line platoon, us, go check it out." So we land. It was all Rome plow. It was basically almost as far as you could see. It was right outside of Like. And so I tell the platoon, I said, "Look, go down there and check it out before we go in." So he takes single file. He goes down a little trail going downhill into this ravine, and all of a sudden you hear click. Oh shit! And he runs back. He had set off a booby trap, and it took off his eye and part of his brain. So he got medevaced out. And I looked him up when I got back in this service. And, and he had one eye. The other one was cosmetically, it looked fine, but it didn't work. And he lost part of his brain. But
was he able to function well?
Well, he's out of the service. He couldn't, No,
in life after.
I know. I met him. I went out there one time because he said he didn't have his medals. It's like, who gives a shit about medals? But okay. So I went out to see if I could help him, but I wasn't able to. He was in Pennsylvania. He wasn't too far from here. But he got a lot of money when he got out of the service, and so he bought himself a car, and I don't know what he did after that. I lost contact.
Have you had any problems with Agent Orange?
Yeah, I have stage 4 cancer.
You do. Is it prostate cancer?
Prostate cancer, got into the lymph nodes. I had an open radical prostatectomy. They took out the prostate and just about everything else down there, including 23 lymph nodes. So, I deal with the incontinence part of it for the most part. So I had prostate cancer, which it spread. That's the main thing. So right now I'm in a clinical trial. I'm in the control group. So we'll determine, so I get the standard care. So they're going to compare me So the people who get the advanced care, and if I die first, the advanced care worked. That's kind of like the way it's set up. I go to Memorial Sloan Kettering.
Were you one of these guys? Sometimes you hear stories of vets, remembering the helos or the planes flying over and the Agent Orange misting down.
Oh, absolutely. Once a week they would spray us. They'd call us up, say, get in a foxhole and put a poncho over you, which is what they would do. And it was droplets, and you could see it was an oily droplet, which I shouldn't have done, but it was everywhere. You couldn't avoid it. It rained down on this and went into the streams. You drank it. You didn't know what you were doing. And no one knew it was the effect.
And of course, the point of that is to kill the foliage, to make it harder for the enemy to hide and all that stuff. So, it made some sense at the time. But do you remember thinking or talking with anyone about, I wonder if this is a good idea for all of this poison to be misting down on us? Is just part of the.
Yeah, just part of what was going on.
Part of the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you're looking from retrospect when you're there.
Right.
It could have just well been rain.
Wow. You may have already mentioned it, but when you look back on your year in Vietnam, what is your strongest memory? What's the memory that most sticks out in your mind?
Well, this woman keeps coming to my mind every once in a while when I'm not thinking.
The old one.
Yeah, the older woman that I killed. That one, it's hard to get it out of your head. Okay, just because it's grotesque. That's the main one. The lieutenant getting killed in the first patrol that I was on. That was kind of a shock. That's hard to forget about.
Right.
It's just that you just did what you had to do and kept going forward, trying to stay alive. Right. I was more concerned about staying alive than I was about killing the enemy. One day we had a reporter assigned to us. Oh, okay. So we go out and we're maybe a mile from the village. So there'd be activity. It was a main trail. It was almost a road, but a trail. And off it, there was another trail, smaller. So the captain sets up on the main trail. He tells me to set up on the side trail. So I go over and set it up. I'm setting up the ambush. And, I said, this stuff's hard packed. No one's come down here in 3 months. Blah, blah, blah. You're not giving me a good position. Yeah, we set up McCarthy. Okay, fine. I said, I'm going out, and the way you do it, you set up the ambush, then you go out and inspect it because you want to put your claymores, you want to put a little foliage in front of it, stuff like that. So I'm out there. I got my 45 in my hand, and I'm looking at the way it's set up. Okay, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. Okay, because one of the things you do when you set up an ambush is while you're setting it up, because you're all out there, setting, you put out sentries on either side. So in case someone's coming in, you just fire at them. You're not setting an ambush. You just want to, protect the other guys. And so the sentries on the right fired at somebody. Okay, and I'm out there with my 45. Okay, so I kind of see them running. I run over to where it was VC because an NVA never would have done what this guy did. He dropped his rifle and started running towards the village. I picked up the AK-47 because I only had a 45. And I go out to the main trail, which is where he was running down, and I start firing at him with the AK-47. Everyone in the back is yelling and screaming, "Hey, Lieutenant has an AK-40! Don't!" Because they would shoot at the sound. Don't shoot it. Don't shoot. Okay. So the guy got away. I wasn't going to go chase him. So I go back and, finish setting up. And this reporter says, "Well, I got to go write this up." So what do you mean? Nothing happened. The guy got to, no. I got to leave. You got to take me out of here. He just lost it. And it really wasn't a big action, but he had had enough.
Well,
so chopper him out.
Right. Yeah. What you just described, to a lot of people, that's going to be the most intense thing they experience in a lifetime. But in the 6 months in the field in Vietnam, that's a minor episode. No.
Right. Yeah. It was like, this didn't count, No, I got to go write this up. No, what's the big deal? So we choppered him out.
So 6 months in the field, 6 months in the rear echelon, is that
Right, yeah.
What did you do in the rear?
So my first assignment was the mortar platoon leader. And I told you what happened with that. It lasted like a couple of days. They went to the captains. You can't have this guy in charge. He's going to get us killed. So, okay, so he took me out of that to maybe the XO. Okay, and as the XO, you're basically the administrative rear. Doing all the stuff, resupply, and people coming and going on, their trips to other, their time off. It was administrative. I mean, it was still in Ly K. It was about to end in Ly K.
Yeah.
But I remember, so you haven't been in the field. You've been in the field for 6 months, so now you're back in the world, right, so to speak.
Right.
And in Ly K, I used to get rocketed and mortared on a regular basis. Okay, but they were trying to hit the airfield. Okay, and Ly K, the way it's set up, it's right on Route 13. It's right, covers the road, and in the middle of the base, surrounded by barbed wire, is the village of Ly K. So the village of Ly K is inside the wire of the Ly K base, and our place, Company C, was right up against the wire. Okay, so we would almost never get income. Okay, so when there was income, we used to basically go out, sit on a bunker, have some popcorn, and watch all the fireworks landing on the airstrip.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a different world.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
Did you
Every once in a while a stray round would come in, but we never had anything happen.
Did you ever miss being in the field, or were you glad to be out of the field?
No. I mean, there were times, when upper echelon was giving us a hard time, and we, fuck you, I'm going back in the field. And one of our guys did that. He just couldn't take all the bullshit. It's fine. I'm going to go take over platoon, and went back in the field. I didn't do that. I had no great desire to do it, but I mean, if they told me to do it, I would have done it. Yeah. I mean, because I knew I could stay alive. I knew how to stay alive. I knew the things you had to do, when to do them. So I had learned a lot. I started a lot of training, but then I learned a lot along the way.
What was your rank when you finished your year in Vietnam? Were you now
first lieutenant?
First lieutenant.
Yeah. Was I a hero? Killed a lot of people, kept fellow soldiers alive, followed the rules, awarded attendance medals, awarded a medal for valor, or a survivor, thought little about my actions, focused on staying alive, applied my training to kill efficiently, used overwhelming firepower, embraced the night. Am I a hero? No, I could kill you. No, I could kill myself. Work makes me forget. Sleep gives respite. Don't have to remember. Will I survive? Agent Orange is killing me. The VA is killing me. The world is killing me. Continue to follow the rules. Embrace the night. Would you still thank me for my service if you knew what I did?
What is that last sentence? I mean, fill in that last sentence. Where does that last
Embrace the night?
From? No, would you still thank me for my service if you knew what I did?
Yeah, if you knew all these people that I killed, especially the ones that weren't combatants, that I just wiped out basically. So I, everyone says, "Oh, thank you for your service," yada yada yada. That's really nice, but people don't realize what it's like to kill other people because most people don't do that. Was I a killer? Trained to be a soldier, trained to be an officer, trained to be a ranger, sent to war. First action, patrol ambushed, screams of fear, lieutenant killed. Mission continued. Killed to survive, training became reflex, fired at the enemy, set mines to kill, soundless explosions, focus on killing. Set night ambush, blow night ambush, see dead and wounded, kill the wounded. Am I a killer?
I mean, so you asked that question, am I a killer? Right, and technically the answer there is yes, right? But
correct.
In the context of war, I mean, so literally, technically the answer to that question is yes, but how do you answer that question I
have an
don't know how
answer.
to put it, in a more, I don't know, in a more human, comprehensive way. What does that mean? You asked a question, am I a killer? Well, given everything you said, the technical answer is yes. In the context of war, you did kill, but I mean, what does that question mean to you, and what does your response to that question mean?
It makes you think about how you've been changed. And I think, this brief little period in my life of a few months basically colored the rest of my life. And part of that's psychological, and part of it is no, you can kill people. That's disturbing. Most people don't have to think about that. Or if they think about it, they're not thinking about it from experience. They're thinking about it abstractly. Yeah.
So I'm thinking of that, that phrase, thank you for your service. And when people say that, they mean thank you for these few years you served in the military. But really what I'm thinking is, thank you for those few years in the military, but also thanking you for
Making a sacrifice.
making a sacrifice and this lifetime of living with the consequences of what that service called on you to do.
Right.
So it's not just thank you for something you did back then, but thank you for this kind of service that you're continuing to offer, or this service that you're continuing to answer to, not only with the memories, but with the Agent Orange and the other things, this ongoing thing that, I imagine just takes up a whole lot of your life, whether you're consciously thinking about it or not. I don't know.
I try to push out of my mind and get to other things. Like, the Legion keeps me very busy, which is good. It was sort of like replaces work. When I was working, like I said, I was a robot. I would just go forever, but then I didn't have to think about things. I could concentrate on whatever the problem was I was trying to solve, but now that I'm retired and I got this quote time on my hands, well, I don't, because
Mm.
doing the stuff for the Legion and
Is there anything in your mind that you want to share before we wrap this up? Anything else that we haven't talked about that you'd like to add?
frankly, I don't like the idea of thank you for your service, but it's the standard. So,
You don't like it when people say that?
no, not really.
Does it sound?
I acknowledge, say thank you,
superficial?
but what?
Does it sound trite, superficial?
Yeah, it does. It's sort of like hello. It doesn't have any meaning because they don't know what my service is like anyway. If they, like I said, if they knew, they'd probably have a different opinion. You can't kill as many people as I do and not have it affect you. It's just the way it is. It's not something you brag about. It's just what we did. I have to do it to stay alive.